Alright, lodged up here in fucking Queens. So, Gandalf and the Balrog, same entity. And Tolkien said he wasn't for metaphor, allegory. But the whole Balrog thing, I don't know if I covered this, but I'm going to make this video specific about it, is Balrog and Gandalf are the same thing. They're two opposites of the same entity. Now, he gives a backstory that Gandalf is a Maiar, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. The thing is, the shadow aspect of Gandalf himself stayed behind in Middle-earth. Was, slumbering in the deep mines. But also in that time had messed up the dwarves. It messed up the dwarves the first time. And then, with the War of the Ring, the war in the Silmarillion and everything in the first age, and maybe the second age, I think it was the first age when they all went to sleep or whatever, and destroyed the first colony there in Moria, or what would become known as Moria. Gandalf knew this. He's up on Kraz Magrak or whatever when he's fighting with Saruman, and he's like, I gotta let the ring bearer decide. You know what I mean? He's not the officer. In the allegory, he's like an intel officer. He's like the recon officer. You know what I mean? He knows, like, whatever. It's like mountain warfare from World War I, where the Swiss and the Italians and people, they're like bombarding each other from mountaintops. You know what I mean? In northern Italy, like they're fighting in the Alps, like high, like dragging cannons. Like whoever can drag the cannon the highest, like, will win the battle. Like, shit was crazy. So Gandalf and Saruman and the party, like, getting jacked up when they try to climb the mountain, and it's like the mountains themselves battling each other. It's like saying, it's a complete allegory for that, regardless of what Tolkien said. And it's like Tolkien created an entire fantasy world. You know what I mean? You don't think he would, like, tell a fib, like, yeah, there's no allegory in here. It's not about Christianity. It's not about anything like that. You know what I mean? A lot of it is pagan. The thing is, a lot of the pagan stuff is Christianity. Don't tell the Christians. You know what I mean? Don't let them know. It's all fantasy. All of it. All. Anyways, mountain battle. Gandalf, Saruman having a mountain battle. Gandalf, like, knows. He doesn't know, maybe consciously, or he does, but he feels it. He's like, he's gonna have to go face himself down in that depth. You know what I mean? It's like Luke Skywalker with Yoda. And Yoda, like, Luke doesn't know what he's gonna find up in that tree, but Yoda knows what he's gonna find. He's just like, you gotta face yourself, bro. You gotta face the truth. The blunt force truth. And Gandalf knows it. Even though he's a Maiar, he's like, he's better than than Aragorn and the little people he loves so much, and the dudes he's trying to get through the situation. Even the elf prince and the dwarf prince, Gimli and Legolas, Boromir, like, he knows he's gonna have to fight, like, an aspect of himself. You know what I mean? That's why he came back in the first place. You know what I mean? They say, oh, we want you because you're the kindest. It was like, no, Gandalf, you gotta finish your fucking unfinished business back on Middle-earth, dude. Like, maybe Gandalf came up with the story, like, I got sent back because, I'm just here to help you guys out, you know what I mean? Or whatever, or that's what they told him. But the real thing he had to do was go face himself in the mines of Moria. And Saruman wanted him to go. Saruman wanted him to go and get his ass whipped by the Balrog. So Saruman is like an agent of Manway or whatever. He's like he's enacting the will of Eru Iluvatar, Manwë, and the One Above All, even though, like, he just wants Gandalf out of the way. But he's still acting as an agent for the greater plan, which is Gandalf has to go down there and fish out his Balrog. So he actually needed the hobbits with him to do that, because he wouldn't, like, nobody else was dumb enough to throw, to make enough noise for it, you know what I mean? So everything was in synchronicity to wake that Balrog up. And instinctively, Gandalf, even despite being a Maiar, like, knew it, but he didn't know it. He was just like, I dread going down there, the dwarves. He's trying to blame it on the dwarves. He's trying to blame it on everybody but himself. But deep down, he knows, like, that whatever was down there was his responsibility, that he didn't take care of in the First Age, whatever he was doing. You know what I mean? Like, that's on him, booby. You know what I mean? So the Balrog gets woken up, and he's like, yo, you better book it. You know what I mean? Like, this thing is shadow and flame, and it's been chilling over here since the beginning of time, since, like, since the first trees and the whole nine. Like, you better just book it, fellas. I'm gonna hold him here on this bridge. You guys get moving, dude, because you are in over your heads, fellowship. Get going. And Gandalf is the holder of the secret flame. He's got his sword. He's got he's got the tools. He's got the tools to deal with it. But he knows it's gonna suck. He knows it's gonna suck. Like, there's just no way. There's no two ways about it. Like, there's nothing he can do for it. Nothing he can do for it. And so he fights. He fights using everything he's got. The all the elements. The water. He's fighting them in the darkness. He's fighting them with his sword. Just fighting them for 3 days and nights. He's fighting them low in the abyss, in the water, after a great fall off his high horse or whatever. He's fighting them on the mountain. How did they get up to the mountaintops? How did they do that? Did they climb? Were they, like, fight climbing up the mountains? How did that happen? Was there, like, an elevator? How did they manage to do that? That's one of the mysteries. You would think, like, you start high. You're starting the battle up high, and then you fight your way down. But he was down low, and then they wound up somehow up high. Strangely enough, how that happens, I don't know. And then finally, Gandalf raises his sword, his tool or whatever, where the secret flame went. His staff, I think, maybe got shattered. Who knows? Might have to actually read the passage, but I think the passage was relatively short compared to what Peter Jackson did in the movie, because, like, everybody remembers that. Like, Gandalf is like, all of a sudden he goes from doddering old wizard to, like, he's like, guess what, and he grabs his sword. He's like flying 1,000,000 miles an hour down a giant, down like a lava tube or something. Like, holy shit, dude. And he's like, he's doing work on the Balrog, because he knows the Balrog, because the Balrog was himself. The Balrog wasn't just him, but was like the shadow Gandalf. That's what Gandalf like. So all the evil aspects of Gandalf. And he had to do that because he was Gandalf the Grey. So when he slips out of time and space, he's like he smote the shadow, his shadow self. He smote what he should have smoted years and years and years ago. But did he really smote it? That's just what Gandalf told everybody. Just what Gandalf told everybody. When he comes back, the Fellowship, like, thinks he's Saruman. and he's talking like Saruman, because Saruman is like he's like the current incarnation of like black and white, but he fell more to the evil. He fell to the, you know, in Tolkien's view, the industrial side and the war side, and he started using Sauron's tactics to you know, he was trying to get as big as Sauron, you know what I mean? Use Sauron's methods and methods of enslavement and, you know, whatever, eugenics and, you know, whatever I guess was in vogue at the time, or whenever the passages were written, whatever was being discussed in Cambridge, Oxford over there. So yeah, it's all like an allegory. Yeah, and one could take it as he's not like the commanding officer, but like Gandalf is like, he's definitely like intel officer or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he definitely knows, like, you know, enemies have been reported over this way, and it's all bad news, and you know, we're in trouble here. And it's like, you know, it could be taken on another level that let's try this again. Taken on another level that you know, it's like a British officer reprimanding a, you know, a little person from fucking up, gives away their position, then all the orcs come. You know what I mean? And then you know, Gandalf has to rectify that as him reprimanding somebody for making noise that probably couldn't have been avoided. You know what I mean? He's like, you son of a bitch, I should have thrown you down there myself. Horrible poison for morale. So like the officer is reprimanding, you know, a soldier, even though he made a noise that may or may not have been avoidable. You know what I mean? Nonetheless, he's poisoning the morale of his troops, of the dudes that need to trust him to make a good decision that's going to get them through it alive. You know what I mean? So the Balrog could also be viewed as Gandalf as an officer, rectifying how he basically, you know, belittled one of his men, and the Balrog is a manifestation of the collective of the men, like this motherfucker here. You know what I mean? Like, dude didn't mean it. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's like a shadow aspect of the whole. If you look at the Fellowship as like a group of dudes who are trying to make it through trench warfare or whatever, they're trying to navigate a precarious situation where they need to be quiet, something to that effect. There's a few different levels you can read it on, and that's why Lord of the Rings is really good in that respect. Like most books, you could read it on multiple different levels, and like the Talmud and the Bible are like that as well. You can read it as the literal, and then there's another level, and then even another, like a higher literal level, you know, or allegorical level, and then a level beyond that where it's just a conceptual, like the pure essence of it. You know, interesting stuff, interesting facets. But it's like, I think most people recognize it as like the Fight Club through the lens of modern psychiatry, schizophrenia. But if you look at most stories like that, like most stories throughout all of history, there's like that dichotomy, the battle within, and it mirrors like the battle without. You know what I mean? The battle within sometimes, you know, in ways mirrors the the occurrences going on in the outside world. Like Odysseus, the Odyssey, there's so, like, with the Odyssey, there's so much of that, it's not even funny. The Trojan War, all, like, most of the Greek stuff, there's more than one thing going on throughout the works, through the passages. And, you know, it's just I call it the Fight Club lens. You know what I mean? You do it with Spider-Man, you could do it with Iron Man, Captain America, you know, the balance between, you know, being a war criminal and a tech genius, that kind of thing. You know, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, you know, who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong. Everybody's breaking the rules. You know, turning Reed Richards into a spaghetti monster, blowing Blackfish's head off with his own head, you know, with his own voice or whatever. You know, Cat in Britain getting cut in half. You know, it's all allegorical, metaphorical, hidden but not really hidden. And, you know, it lends another dynamic to it. You know, as opposed to the pure woke stuff, where like, I think that's really the problem people have with, like, the quotation mark woke stuff, is that a lot of it only works on one level, you know, because, you know, these people don't put a lot of thought into it. They're interjecting their own personal experiences. Like, their characters are actually the authors themselves, you know, which is a phenomenon that happens with the woke productions, is that the author is the main character, completely interjecting themselves, and identity politics is, like, flat. There's not a whole lot of reading between the lines. It's like, you know, they're wrapped up in it for the attention to begin with, and there's like no subtext, there's no supertext. It's just, you know, this is me now, I'm the hero because that's what I want. You know, just basic desire manifests. And I think that's why a lot of the woke stuff doesn't really resonate. It doesn't resonate with the whole family. It's kind of just very shallow and vapid. It comes off as, you know, like shallow, vapid, and then to boot, it's like aesthetically unpleasing because there's no subtext to it. You know, meanwhile you got like Lord of the Rings, where like there's more than one thing going on pretty much throughout all those movies. And like, even when the orcs are ugly and shit like that, there's still the metaphorical aspects weaving through everything, you know. Or like the Dune stuff, there's metaphorical aspects weaving through the entire story, and that's what lends it, like, it's artistic, you know, weight, gravity to it. You know what I mean? I haven't seen too many contemporary, like, recent movies lately. Like maybe The Menu. There's a metaphor weaving through all of it. You know, and I think that's important for good storytelling. Even though I don't particularly consider myself a good storyteller. Maybe a good writer once upon a time, but due to synchronicity and being the wrong promotional type, I've kind of put all writing aside for a good long time. You know, just you know, not I wasn't the right DEI for NYU at any rate. Anyways, you know, they're all white, gray-haired white liberal women. They look to promote minority, whatever. And they said I wrote like Hemingway, you know. It just didn't work out. I could have forced it to work out, but it's like, you know, why bother? I'd be better off publishing on Amazon if I really wanted to. And I think one day I will, for sure. what I'll probably do is yap it out, maybe yap it out, and then come back around to it. But all my English teachers, every teacher I've had was like, "Oh, you're a really good writer, or whatever. You're not as good as this chick over here, but you could be pretty good." And I'd say, "Yeah, whatever. No need for it. Authors got their own things." And then the more I learned about Hemingway, the more I realized he was kind of like a liberal poser. You know what I mean? He was wrapped up with like the anti-fascist, but he wasn't like, he was more of a poser, and like he was boxing just to prove how tough he was. You know what I mean? He was doing stupid shit to prove how manly he was, not because that was just a byproduct of him being a fucking, being a tough dude. It's that he just really, really wanted to be a tough dude. Okay? So, I mean, that's kind of the more I read about him, the kind of the impression I get. Or maybe it's, people's critiques or whatever. I mean, the shit is still fantastic. It's one thing to want to pretend to be tough, and it's another thing to be tough because you just have to be. You know what I mean? There is a distinction there. And, the hipsters, like, you can see that manifest with hipsters and stuff like that. They dress like lumberjacks, but they're really, like, coders or accountants or something like that. Or they, like, they, like, run a microbrewery, but they dress like a fucking skinhead from Britain in the 80s, you know what I mean? Like, give me a break. Give me a break here, you know what I mean? Give me a fucking break. Then again, you got guys like Gavin McInnes, who, like, where they are actually, like, they are like a skinhead from the fucking 80s, you know what I mean? And then they attach themselves to, like, thin blue line shit like this, and those guys better watch out for, like, Gavin. You can obviously see he's like he was an op when he was doing the Proud Boy things. He's an op doing now whatever he's been doing on Twitter. It's like, once you're a collectivist liberal, like, you don't just stop doing that, you know what I mean? So, the Opie and Anthony crowd, like, the fucking, kind of actually creepy motherfuckers, which, like, I don't like those motherfuckers either, the actual fascists, because less government is better, quite obvious. The Jefferson take on it is obviously better, and, but then you have to deal with the Adams take on shit like this, and Hamilton take on the economy. It's like, the whole fucking thing. Long story short, Gandalf and the Balrog, same entity, same, two sides of the same coin, and you can apply that to, the black and the white. It's the black and the white dichotomy of the chessboard. They're fighting the same war. And, Tyler Durden and whatever the other guy's name was. And, and you can apply that to many different stories. You might be able to even apply that to romance, too. That I'm not sure of. Along, two lovers cross time and space, Cloud Atlas shit, or whatever. And that's a 25-minute video. I hope the sound quality is good for these videos. I know the videos it's mostly me just talking about this, not the same shit, but it's just me in the car yapping. I'm in traffic. What can you do? Anyways, I hope this video has been informative or sheds a new light on aspect of of my theory, anyways, about the Balrog and the Maya in a meta sense, because I don't think there's any literary, I don't think there's anywhere where Tolkien mentions directly that, you know, it's a dichotomy or an allegory for the same fucking thing. Although Jackson gives a nod to it when Gandalf is up on the hill. He's like, I don't fucking want to go to Moria. Like, it's the way I would go I would fucking go through Rohan or whatever the fuck. So that's that. This is my piece on it. Have a good one.